I saw the baby and I was shocked. It was not my race. My heart sank.
Today we bring the story of a man who discovers that his wife cheated on him when her baby is born. Let's get on with the story. When my wife was 6 months pregnant, we were thrilled to learn that we were expecting a boy. We celebrated with a baby shower and made all the necessary preparations for our expanding family. With a 5-year-old son already, we thought we could reuse some of his things. When the day of labor arrived, I stood by my wife's side, no stranger to the birthing process, having been through it 5 years ago. Looking back, as our firstborn grew older, I started having doubts about whether he was truly mine. Despite having doubts, I was overjoyed when he was born, as I had married my best friend. At 29, I am happily married to my 27-year-old wife. We quickly became best friends after meeting at a park and had been together for 5 years. Our son was conceived shortly after we became intimate, so suspicions of infidelity didn't cross my mind. However, as our son grew, I couldn't shake the feeling that he didn't look like me at all. The differences became more apparent, and I found myself questioning his paternity. His features seemed vastly different from what I expected a child of mine to look like. I have nieces and nephews, and my wife has her own, but our son didn't resemble anyone on my side of the family. What added to my concerns was my wife's behavior. There were inconsistencies in her schedule, and she often went out without a clear explanation of where she was going. One incident stood out when she claimed to be visiting a friend in the hospital, causing me to leave work early to relieve the babysitter. However, I later discovered through social media that the friend was on vacation at the time. In that intense moment in the delivery room, as my wife was going through the pain of labor, I found myself standing by her side, holding her hand tightly. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation, and I could feel the weight of the impending delivery. This was supposed to be the moment we welcomed our second biological son into the world, a fresh start for us. As the medical team guided her through the stages of labor, coaching her on breathing techniques and providing support, I was there offering words of encouragement. I remember every second vividly, as the contraction intensified and the medical team prepared for the final stage of delivery. The cry of the baby pierced through the room before I laid eyes on him. However, when I finally saw him, a sense of confusion washed over me. Something didn't seem right. It was as if he looked like a mixed-race baby. Oddly, all the medical staff, except for the doctor, acted like everything was normal. The doctor, though, gave me a look that cut through the tension, almost as if he was confirming my own racial identity before recomposing himself. This unexpected twist added another layer of complexity to the doubts that had been lingering in my mind. It's a moment that marked the most traumatic experience of my life, surpassing even the birth of our firstborn. As I stood there, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss, and the look from the doctor only deepened my sense of unease. The glaringly obvious difference in the baby's race hit me like a ton of bricks. Frozen in disbelief, I stood there as everyone around us acted like it was a perfectly normal occurrence. The grip of my wife's fingers around my palm grew tighter, and I felt my world closing in. It wasn't until after the medical team left the room that I regained control of myself. The need to confront her was overwhelming, but she was too tired and sleepy from the ordeal. I walked out of the hospital, refusing to help her and avoiding any involvement, leaving her family to assist her and the baby back home. I couldn't bear to be around, let alone sign the birth certificate. The side of the family that perceives me as a terrible person doesn't know the truth that she was the one who cheated. Shortly after, I decided to do a DNA test on my 5-year-old son. The day I received the results marked the day I filed for separation from what had become a sham of a marriage. I served her divorce papers while she was still recovering from childbirth. My mom and sister were there, having helped her out of the hospital, and they turned combative when I served her the divorce papers. They called me a deadbeat and an irresponsible father, following me around the house, attempting to provoke a violent reaction. I knew their game: to incite violence so they could use it against me in the divorce process. Up until that point, I had been a devoted father to her son, loving him with all my heart. But now, seeing him fills me with disdain for the 5 years I wasted, and disdain for not trusting my instincts. Now, I'm left with virtually nothing. People call me a monster for leaving my son, but they don't know the whole story. I packed a few clothes and stayed at an extended stay hotel, biding my time until I found an apartment. I left everything, even my furniture, behind with her. Moreover, she contributed some of it, but I'd rather she have it all. I don't want anything from my old life that might remind me of her. Even when I was at the hotel, and she didn't know where I was, she tried multiple times to guilt me into coming back. She went to the extent of having our 5-year-old call me at random hours of the night, crying and begging for his daddy to come back home. It was a manipulative tactic to torture me further, as if she hadn't done enough. She constantly told me how much damage I was doing to the family. In every conversation, whether online or offline, where our son was brought up, I was berated and shamed. Despite not being the boy's biological father, I am his dad. It's a painful reality that despite my commitment and love for him, the continuous betrayal and infidelity overshadowed everything. Throughout our marriage, she cheated on me repeatedly, eroding the trust and foundation of our relationship. To make matters worse, she used our mutual friends to gang up against me. As a result, I distanced myself from most of them, as they labeled me a despicable person for abandoning the child. My parents and siblings have been a source of support, understanding the complexity of it all, especially since they bonded with her son and babysat for us. But even their support doesn't erase the pain and confusion I'm going through. It's disheartening to realize that, for some friends and family, my feelings don't seem to matter much. They expect me to man up and continue playing a role that isn't mine, despite the fact that a DNA test has proven the child isn't biologically mine. The pressure to be a father to a child born out of my wife's betrayal is intense. It's frustrating that my feelings are being dismissed or misunderstood. I've come to the realization that, in many people's eyes, I'm supposed to put aside my pain, betrayal, and emasculation to continue being there for a child who isn't biologically mine. The accusations that I never loved him or was always looking for a way out only add to the emotional burden. The expectation that I should continue to be a father to a child born out of infidelity is difficult to bear. It's not realistic to expect me to maintain that role as we go through a divorce and I pursue a disestablishment of paternity. The emotional toll of being cheated on, lied to, and used by someone who hasn't been truthful about her actions is profound. I still have my own life and feelings to consider. While I love the child like my own, the idea of playing a role that isn't truly mine is becoming increasingly difficult. It's not about abandoning an innocent child, but rather about recognizing the reality of the situation and taking back control of my own life. It's crucial to make it clear that I don't harbor any resentment towards the child. He's an innocent casualty of his mother's actions, and I feel a deep sadness when I think about what he must be going through. However, every time I look at him, I can't escape the reality of the 5 years of deception and betrayal that I endured. This situation is far from easy for me, and I find it impossible to put aside my feelings of hurt and frustration to maintain a role that was built on lies. The life I thought I shared with him was nothing more than a facade created by his mother. It's a painful truth that I can no longer bear, and for the sake of both of us, I've decided to pursue a disestablishment of paternity. I find myself questioning why she isn't actively searching for his real father. She knows who he is, and it seems like a more reasonable approach than clinging to a situation that's based on deception. Instead, she's fighting the divorce and pushing for child support, making it clear that she wants to keep me entangled in a life that has already proven to be a web of lies. My lawyer has mentioned that there's a good chance of not paying child support based on similar cases in the state, but the uncertainty adds to the stress. Money is not my biggest concern here. My primary worry is that his mother will continue to use him against me. I still care for him, but it's time for me to move on and start afresh. Admitting to this colossal mistake is painful, and the time and trauma invested in this relationship are something I know I can never fully recover. But moving forward seems to be the only viable option for both of our sakes. It's indeed a complex and emotionally challenging situation that the original poster is going through. The issues around paternity fraud are sensitive and can have profound impacts on individuals and families. The legal aspects of disestablishment of paternity vary depending on jurisdiction, and it's true that some places may allow it under certain conditions even without the biological father's consent. The shift towards prioritizing the welfare of the child, often at the expense of the legal father, is a significant concern that has been discussed in various contexts. The comparison to the Titanic scene, where women and children go first, is a poignant analogy for how family courts often operate. Men can feel disposable, and the legal system's focus on holding them accountable for decisions they had no part in can be incredibly challenging. The information about paternity tests being banned in France raises questions about the balance between preserving the peace of families and the right to know one's biological parentage. It's a complex issue that involves ethical, legal, and societal considerations. The underlying point you make about the importance of choice for both partners in situations of infidelity is a valid one. Relationships are built on trust, and when that trust is broken, individuals should have the autonomy to make decisions that align with their values and well-being. Overall, this story highlights the need for open conversations and awareness around issues of paternity fraud, relationship transparency, and the rights of all individuals involved. It's a topic that requires careful consideration and compassion for everyone affected. Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. Dear listener, if you have reached this far, please click on the subscribe button. It will be a great help.